a robotic car that can drive itself. You press start, nobody touches anything, and it can reach its destination fully autonomously. So in 2007, our team won $500,000 by placing third place in this competition. So about that time, the National Federation of the Blind, or NFB, challenged the research community about who can develop a car that a blind person drive safely and independently. We decided to give it a try because we thought, hey, how hard could it be? We just have already an autonomous vehicle, we just put a blind person in it, and we're done, right? What we wanted was not a vehicle that can drive a blind person around, but a vehicle where a blind person can make active decisions and drive. So we have to throw everything out the window and start from scratch. So to test this crazy idea, we developed a small dune buggy prototype vehicle to test the feasibility. And in the summer of 2009, we invited dozens of blind youth from all over the country. Amazing experience. To only be driven in a very controlled environment, in a flat, closed-up parking lot, even the lanes defined by red traffic cones. So with this success, we decided to take the next big step, to develop a real car that can be driven on the real roads. So how does it work? Well, it's a rather complex system, but let me try to explain it, make it simplified. So we have 3 steps. We have perception, computation, and non-visual interfaces. Now, obviously, the driver cannot see, so the system needs to perceive the environment and gather information for the driver. For that, we use a inertial measurement unit that measures acceleration, angular acceleration, like a human ear, inner ear. We fuse that information with a GPS unit to get an estimate of the location of the car. We also use 2 cameras to detect the lanes of the road, and we also use 3 laser rangefinders. The laser scan the environment to detect obstacles, car approaching from the front, the back, and also any obstacles that run into the roads, any obstacles around the vehicle. So all this vast amount of information is then fed into the computer, and the computer can do 2 things. One is, first of all, process this information to have an understanding of the environment. These are the lanes of the road, there's an obstacles, and convey this information to the driver. The system is also smart enough to figure out the safest way to operate the car. So we can also generate instructions of how to operate the controls of the vehicle. But the problem is this: how do we convey this information and instructions to a person who cannot see fast enough and accurate enough so he can drive? So for this, we developed many different types of non-visual user interface technologies. So starting from a 3-dimensional pinging sound system, a vibrating vest, a click wheel with voice commands, foot. We're going to talk about 3 non-visual user interfaces. Now, the first is called grip. We can instructions about how to steer, the direction and the intensity. Another device is called speed strip. So this is a chair, as a matter of fact, it's actually a massage chair. We got it out and we rearrange these vibrating elements in different patterns, and we actuate them to convey information about the speed and also instructions on how to use the gas and the brake pedal. So over here you can see how the computer understands the environment, and because you cannot see the vibration, we actually put red LEDs on the drive grip so you can actually see what's happening. This is the sensory data, and that data is transferred to the devices through the computer. So these 2 devices, drive grip and speed strip, are very effective, but the problem is these are instructional cue devices. So this is not really freedom, right? The computer tells you how to drive, turn left, turn right, speed up, stop. We call this the backseat driver problem, right? So we're moving away from these instructional cue devices, and we're now focusing more on the informational devices. A good example for this informational non-visual user interface is called AirPix. So think of it as a monitor for the blind. So it's a small tablet, has many holes in it, and compressed air comes out. So it can actually draw images. So even though you're blind, put your hand over it, you can see the lanes of the road and obstacles. So actually, you can also change the frequency of the air coming out and possibly the temperature. So it's actually a multi-dimensional user interface. So here you can see the left camera and the right camera from the vehicle and how the computer interprets that and sends that information to the AirPix. For this, we're showing a simulator, a blind person driving using the AirPix. This simulator was also very useful for training the blind drivers and also quickly testing different type of ideas for different type of non-visual user interfaces. So basically, that's how it works. So just a month ago, in January 29th, we unveiled this vehicle for the very first time to the public at the world-famous Daytona International Speedway during the Rolex 24 racing event. We also had some surprises. Let's take a look.
man that's out in front of him. Well, there comes the first box, and now let's see if Mark avoids it. He does. He passes it on the right. Third box is out. The fourth box is out. And he's perfectly making his way between the two. He's closing in on the man to make the moving pass. Well, this is what it's all about, this kind of dynamic display of capacity and ingenuity. He's approaching the end of the run, makes his way in between the barrels that are set up there.
I'm so happy. I'm so glad. Oh, Mark's gonna give me a ride back to the hotel, right? So, since we started this project, we've been getting hundreds of letters, emails, phone calls from people from all around the world. Letters thanking us, but sometimes we also get funny letters like this one. Now I understand that where there's Braille on a drive-up ATM machine, right? But sometimes I also do get, I wouldn't call it hate mail, but letters of really strong concerns. Dr. Hong, are you insane? Trying to put blind people on the road? You must be out of your mind. But this vehicle is a prototype vehicle, and it's not going to be on the road until it's proven safe or safer than today's vehicle, and I truly believe this can be happen. But still, would the society, would they accept such a radical idea? How are we going to handle insurance? How are we going to issue a driver license? There's many of these kind of different hurdles besides technological challenges that we need to address before this becomes a reality. Of course, the main goal of this project is to develop a car for the blind, but potentially more important than this is the tremendous value of the spin-off technology that can come from this project. The sensors that we use can see through the dark, the fog, and rain, and together with these new type of interfaces, we can use these technologies and apply to safer cars for sighted people. Or for the blind, everyday home appliances in the educational setting, in the office setting. Just imagine, in a classroom, a teacher writes on the blackboard and a blind student can see what's written and read using these non-visual interfaces. This is priceless. So today, the things I've shown you today is just the beginning. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so I guess all of you have watched the video maybe, twice, or I don't know how many times have you watched the video, perhaps. Okay, so we're going to start the discussion. So this discussion will be, a group-based kind of response. So perhaps, whenever I call your name, maybe you can address you are from which group. Will be the same group as your group project. Is it clear? Okay, I guess we should have like 88 people in this class, but now I only have like 56. Mana yang lain tu? Okay, all right. So first, yes, we have seen 2 videos and also a few videos from last week, which is talking about algorithm ethics or talking about AI ethics in general. Okay. So now, starting off with, okay, this one can be individual, not in specific groups. Okay, so what do you think about, AI ethics, which is like, I'm not saying that it is different from the ethics that you have learned in ethics classes, but this ethics is specifically meant for developing algorithms or developing techniques that is actually try to mimic or try to emulate human intelligence. All right, so we are talking about broad area right now. We're talking about inputs, we're talking about process, and also talking about the output of the, algorithms. So now, yes, AI ethics. Okay, I guess I want to call, I don't know, siapa yang saya nak panggil dulu ni? Adam Irshad, ada? I would really appreciate if you can turn on the camera while you are speaking. That would be the best. All right, Adam Irshad ada?
Hello.
Ha.
Ada, okay.
Yes, ada Mishat, AI ethics, algorithm ethics. So you dah tengok bahan-bahan minggu lepas?
Ada refer sikit-sikit lah.
Ada first sikit. So what is apa dia? Apa yang you rasa tentang
Oh,
do you think it's important?
for me ethics ni dia important
Mhm.
because kalau kita tak tengok dari segi teknologi,
Mhm.
even kita buat kerja biasa pun ada ethics.
Right?
So I think ethics ni should be applied to all works,
Mhm.
especially for technology because tak ada orang monitor benda tu. So
Mhm.
ethics is really important lah sebab if anything happens, who should we blame lah. Macam tu.
Should
For me lah.
be responsible lah. But in terms, okay, what about regulations? Should we make it like, not ethics is something that is very flexible, something it can be right, wrong. So if it's so important,
Yeah.
you make it like, legally bind it as law or regulation?
I think it should be applied to the law and regulation too because bila cakap pasal law ni dia banyak, dia meluas. So if contohlah if we create law for A, then mesti akan ada yang law yang akan backup A tu.
Mas, contoh.
Contoh contoh kalau drive, each car should have a driver, right?
Betul.
So saya rasa mesti ada satu law yang akan backup law yang should have a driver tu.
Contohnya,
Saya tak tahulah. Saya
backup tu macam mana? What do you mean by backup?
macam saya nak terangkan saya nampak tapi saya tak tahu nak terangkan macam mana.
Anyone maybe can support Adam Irshad's point on that. If you have like, idea, you can chip in. Ada? Tak ada? Alright, in order for us to have a good discussion, everybody has to chip in. Semua orang kena proaktif lah. I'm trying to be, because this is discussion that leads to certain points, kan? So, yeah, of course I can call out names, but then part 6.
Madam, can I volunteer?
Yes, why not? Please.
Regarding Adam's explanation just now, I think he meant that if one law states that a car needs to have a driver, so another law backs up, meaning that why that the earlier law states that a driver needs to a car needs to have a driver. So I think that's my opinion.
Okay, all right, agree. Okay, by the way, I am actually posting a link on your WhatsApp group. So this is actually because remember I mentioned about kelas malam yang dengan klien saya. Okay, next week what will happen is actually we're going to have our test. Okay, coming up, and test tu jap ya. The area of the topics is basically ethics and also well-being and health. Okay, all right. So how it's going to work? Yeah, going to open this one first. Yeah. Suddenly I cannot open it. Okay, jap. Oops. Sekejap, bateri pula dah mati. Sekejap ya. So sorry guys, I have problem kejap ya. Okay. Alright. Okay, mana tadi saya berhenti tadi test Okay, so next week there will be no online classes. It will be test for you guys. The test will cover the area of ethics, AI ethics, and also um, AI for health and well-being. Okay, dan dia punya concentration, okay, perlu tak nak kena baca apa-apa ke? Ada soalan tak pasal tu? Nak kena ready apa-apa ke? Alright, what will happen is basically what we're going to discuss this week is actually a clue for your questions next week. So that's why the one that I'm sharing with you just now, which is the link, that is actually our notes for today. So I'm not going to prepare any notes. What you have to do is you have to jot down. Alright, so for that, the first one, discussion points, is ethics versus law and everything. So I want you, all of you, work collaboratively so everybody can enter that link. All right, okay. Open it and then together you jot down that. Okay, I will add up extra points if we miss out, but I will not, helping you to do from scratch lah. What you have to do is everyone in this class, while we do the discussion, you have to jot down all the points. Is it clear? Boleh?
Boleh.
Boleh sedihnya.
Boleh.
Boleh. Dia punya boleh tu macam, yelah. Okay, alright. So tadi kita dah start dengan AI ethics. So it is important. So sometimes the law is actually, kita nak cakap macam mana the law is supposed to, the law and enforcement supposed to help to curb, any shortcomings of the technology. But what happened today is the development of the technology or the advancement of the technology is basically too fast. It move faster than the regulation itself. Maknanya benda tu dah ada dulu. For example, blockchain. There is no regulations, there's no strict regulation about blockchain as for now in Malaysia, but we already use blockchain technology, like, some people using wallet for blockchain as well. I mean, for Bitcoin, for example, the Bank Negara is still in the process of regulating it, but it's already in use. Okay, so now we move on to driving punya case study. For today is case study about driving. All right, so I need someone first to comment on the first video, which is the Patrick Lin, the thought simulation about driving. Okay, saya belum review lagi jawapan masing-masing, but the first question was like, if you're if you're in designing a autonomous vehicle, then you have to decide. On your left is actually a motorcyclist with helmet on, and on your right is a motorcyclist without the helmet. So in the case of emergency, you have to, decide whether you have to swerve to the left or right. So what will be your decision? Okay, ni saya nak kena panggilkan nama ke macam mana ni?
Madam,
Ya.
boleh ke kalau kita pilih kita stay on our lane?
So maknanya membahayakan passenger kat belakang lah. Because you have passengers at the back.
Sebab saya rasa kalau macam dia punya risiko kalau kita langgar motor ni lagi besar daripada kalau macam dalam kereta sendiri.
Okay, so now your main responsibilities is to protect the passengers inside the car.
Ya sebab saya sendiri naik motor, jadi saya macam kalau saya kat tempat motor tu saya rasa macam selfish decision lah kalau kita pilih untuk langgar motor tu.
Alright, so can we say that the car that Azrul is actually designing is not safe for the passengers, right?
Ya, tapi macam mana sebab
Alright, okay.
kalian untuk motor tu
Alright, it's okay. It's a good point. Tapi Azrul stay dulu, jadi respon balik. Sekarang
Okay.
kita tanya Aina. Mana Aina? Aina? Where is Aina?
Hello, madam.
Okay, Aina.
Sorry, saya lag sikit.
Okay, so Aina,
Yes.
you dengar Azrul cakap apa tadi kan?
Dengar?
Okay, so now, for example, you are the one yang passenger dekat dalam kereta Azrul tadi.
Okay.
So would you rather, would you like to ride in Azrul's AB, autonomous vehicle?
I think no. Sebab bagi saya, okay, kalau in my opinion, our product tu patutnya dia prioritaskan safety kita dulu. Maksudnya kita as passenger. Tapi I think Azrul has a good point sebab betul lah, selalunya kalau accident, impact tu lagi teruk on motorcyclist daripada car passengers.
Okay, car passengers. Okay, now, before I call upon Adaha and also I think Natasha pointed juga. Okay, before that. All right, so the thing about autonomous vehicle is before this, if you're driving by yourself, you are one entity dengan kereta tu because you are the driver as well as you own the car and you are the passenger. All the decision is actually your decision. At that moment of time, the decision is actually your decision, whether accident ke tidak ke dan sebagainya, yes. But when you're in autonomous vehicle, the decision is not based on the passenger's view or passenger's thought or anything. It's solely the car that actually has to make the decision. Which is, for example, if Azrul is actually the designer or the programmer of that car, it's Azrul's decision. Okay, so it's quite different when we mention about, okay, if you're driving, we have to do that. If you are driving, so you are thinking about the passenger and also driver is actually one entity. But right now, what happened is the driver, which is the autonomous vehicle, is completely a different entity than the driver. Sorry, than the passenger. Okay, so now the context of the discussion is quite different. So if you're talking about the way you normally drive, this is like a different one. Okay, so that you should bear in mind. So now, okay, let's hear from Adha. Kamaru Adha.
Saya, Puan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay,
Okay. All clear? All good?
Good, clear.
Okay, so before I address my opinion first, I think I should address the opinions of the others, of the students, especially for Azrul, and the students in the chat as well. I think the vast majority would like to prioritize the driver. They would like to save themselves compared to anyone else on the road, which is fine. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to criticize about that. So before I go on with my own opinion, just an assumption. The first assumption is that an autonomous driving would be the car would have full control. Yes, okay, that would be the first assumption. Okay, so in my mind, I do have another idea in which it incorporates free will. So the driver has some control over the autonomous driving. So instead of having the car having full control, whether it wants to go left or go right or just go straight head on and hit something. So if we incorporate something like free will, it should have some. The driver will have some things to be accountable. He or she has to be accountable for his or her action. So my idea is there should be a way for the driver to select either prioritize occupant
All right.
or
Okay. So
prioritize.
now when you mention the driver is the AV, right? The autonomous vehicle, saying that?
Yes, the autonomous vehicle. Yes, let's say that I am the driver. I have that autonomous vehicle with me, and I do have the option, two options.
Yeah. So you are the passenger right now at the
I
back.
am the passenger. Yes.
Okay. All right then.
Okay, so I have two options. It's either prioritize occupant, just me. I'm prioritizing myself, or the second option would be prioritize pedestrian or the other drivers. So let's say that I am prioritizing myself
All right.
or prioritizing the driver.
The
So
passenger, we're talking about the passenger because the car is actually now we're not talking about a soul because the car is actually a car. So it means that your main priority is actually the passengers at the back, the passengers of the AV vehicle.
yep.
So which
So
is another entity to it. So you have like three things that you have to consider: the pedestrian and also the passengers at the back. So
okay. So when I say that prioritize occupant, it means the everyone in that particular vehicle. So not just me, but also the passengers at the back. So let's say that I prioritize occupant, which is myself and the other passengers. So in any case that that the car has to swerve in order to protect my car, then I will be accountable for that person's injuries. So if I select prioritize pedestrian, then in any injury that I have or the passengers, I will take accountable for that. So there's some free will involved, meaning that again, if I choose prioritize occupant, meaning I am trying to save myself, I am optimizing the safety for my own, for the passengers. Only then, if there is any accident, I'll have to take accountable for that. If it's prioritizing the pedestrian, then any injuries that I have because of the accident, then it will be my fault because I am prioritizing the other drivers on the road. So there will be two things. But again, there's a lot of pros and cons there, but it is a way to actually handle the law and the ethics because we can actually pinpoint who is at fault there. So because of that free will, we can pinpoint it there. So that would be my idea. Because
yes.
if it's fully autonomous, then it will be so difficult to pinpoint who will be at fault, who is to blame for that. Because to train an autonomous vehicle, it takes a lot of data, so data from all over the world. So to pinpoint who's to be blamed, then it could be a lengthy case, and it could not even solve the problem. So yes, that's my opinion on this.
That is the thing that very interesting about driving because when we talk about driving, the experience is actually very dynamic. It's changing a lot. And then okay, I agree with Umar. A lot of term, yeah. It's not like your fault. But then right, like the front vehicle. Okay, this is like the ideal situation. Everything is safe. All right. But there will be when you're driving, there will be condition when something happened. For example, one of the tires actually punctured ke apa ke, tire, there's problem with tires, everything. So you have to make a quick decision at time. So what will it be? Okay. And then like for example, the autonomous vehicle to make the decision like pull brake, stop. But you cannot simply stop when you are driving in the middle of the road. What will happen is actually you are going to endanger yourself, the car, and also the passengers inside because there will be another car driving at the back. If they are putting like a safe distance, okay lah. But how about if it's too close? They're going to hit you, for example. So that situation, okay, basically the whole discussion is actually pointing into the decision-making process. We're not going to looking for someone to be blamed. That will be one point after that. Okay, so when it happened, so kita kata, oh, siapa at fault? Who should be responsible? But before that happened, we actually, as developers, as AI designers, whoever you are, for example, AI solution designers, solution architect, because now we are trying to into the algorithm going to make the decision, but the original decision is coming from the programmers, the developers. All right, this is one example about driving. How about think about in healthcare when you have AI that making decision whether a diagnosis is for example, they have like cell sample for when you're doing biopsy, for example. So you want to determine whether AI is going to determine whether this cell is cancerous or not. It's a big decision. So you're not very sure whether, you are 50-50. Is this actually cancerous or not? So now the decision is, for example, if the AI classifying that cells is actually cancerous, so it is not benign. So this is something that, you should alert. You are making big decision in Alright, and the other possibility is the cell is benign, it's not cancerous. So okay, take the first tell that oh, this is cancerous, and turn out to be it is actually false true, for example. So it is actually not dangerous. So you're putting the patient under serious tension, serious pressure. They have to decide what treatment they have, or it's not cancerous, but it is actually cancerous. So the patient is not doing anything. So they died because of that decision. So now, if you're talking about such system, we're not talking about driving right now. Kita cerita yang itu sahaja. So as a designer, as a developer, how are you going to handle that one? If the doctor is making mistake because of the system diagnosis, who is going to be at fault?
Do you mind if I pitch in my idea about this?
So, what do you think? Chana.
Okay, so I believe Sir Razif has mentioned this, in which the topic was, will AI take over the majority of the jobs?
Alright.
In reality, it wouldn't actually, because an AI, the job is just to predict. It is not the definitive answer. It's similar to weather. Sometimes it can predict it will be raining. Sometimes it will be it's predicting that it will be cloudy, but it turns out it won't be that. It's not giving answers. So just because they still need someone to actually evaluate in the case of false thing for the so is much better, because at least it brings attention to that patient. They can have multiple tests to really test the symptoms, rather than having a false negative. Then it might be too late for the patient to know that he or she might have have a cancer cell. Then if it's too late, then maybe it's already at stage 4. So yeah, that's my opinion on that.
That's your opinion. Okay. Now, okay, I'm looking at names now. All right. Okay, Said Nazida, what do you think? Are you agree with Adha? False positive is better than false negative? Where's Said? All right, Amirul Zafwan said, since certain situation require decision for me, lastly, it's required consent from the circle, so at least the decision is being made. Okay, yes, of course, we are not, I agree with Adha, we are not replacing human, but, you know, when you are developing something, like AI algorithms and everything, so we also have to be accountable, responsible for the things that, you know, making the decision. Of course, Said, agree je? Betul lah, betul. I want your opinion, Said. Say something.
Sorry, doktor. Tadi saya tak ada mic.
Okay. All right. So what do you think? I know your FIP is doing on, I think you're doing machine learning kan?
Yeah, saya buat super resolution.
Oh, okay, salah pula. All right, because you know what? As we discuss this, think about your FYP. The impact of FYP to society, for example, if you're doing, not necessarily you're doing machine learning ke apa ke, anything that require like, you know, decision making, think about the impact of your program or your systems or maybe your prototype. Okay, so Syed agree dengan apa? All right, Syed, your microphone is not working. All right, so all right, let me comment on that. For me, it is best to keep humanity rather than leave AI on that decision for everything. I'm not saying that you are relying on AI doing everything, because currently what happened is actually you are guys, including me, is relying on Google. Siapa kat sini agree? Raise your hand. I'm saying that, you know, like 80% of information I'm relying on Google right now. So this is 2022. So fast forward, perhaps 2032, saya tak pencen lagi masa tu. I'm still working. All right. Yeah, most of you is actually agree. Yep. By that, maybe, you know, Google maybe, you know, still exists, or maybe you have some sort of AI that actually arranging everything for you. So sooner or later, it will happen. Though you say, oh, leave to humanity, da 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 da. Okay, I know it's tempting to say that, but you have also to accept the fact that sooner or later there will be something which is like Google, or maybe Google getting smarter and smarter, and then behind Google is actually AI algorithms that is actually making this decision for you. I know there is a certain level of decision, perhaps maybe what to wear or whether you can handle that to Google, but something that is life-threatening macam tadi driving, dan kita tak nak lah bagi Google buat. But, you know, as for now, we are towards that. We are moving towards that. All right, then, okay, sekarang sudah sebab paparan sikit lagi. Then comes the second video. What do you think about that? Blind people are driving on the street, on the road, on the highway? Haika, can you comment? Haika Zakwan?
I
President.
think it is doable. However,
How do
it
you feel
might
about
take
that? How do you feel dulu? How do you feel about that? Tengah-tengah drive, tiba-tiba ada orang buta kat sebelah tengah drive juga. Okay, Natasha tak agree.
as it is currently, I don't agree because there's a lot of problems like their perceptions and based on the videos. I think the most important part is the tablet, the Air tablet.
Yeah, tablet, yeah.
I think it's very low in resolution and it's kind of finicky and and from the final test where the driver is driving around a track, he's driving very slowly and that might not translate really well in a realistic driving environment.
Yeah.
So I think the technology needs to advance a little bit more before implementing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I feel.
Just like what Dennis Hong said, this is a long way to go because of course there is regulation, there is insurance, everything. There's so many things need to be solved before it can be on the road. But there's one thing, and in terms of us as AI community over here, there's so many things that we have to be accountable for before it's happening. But it is very exciting to watch that. Okay, then how many of you watch the video that I shared yesterday about the GT Sophie, the gaming one? It's also about driving. Berapa orang yang dah tengok? Kalau dah tengok, angkat tangan. Tak tengok lagi semua. Oh my god. Okay, tak apa. Alright, Ali nak bagi opinion. Yes, please Ali.
Okay, dia about the blind people driving cars. I think it's okay, but it depends on the country. For example, because the blind people, as you can see from the video just now, the blind people was driving at around 27 miles per hour, right? It wasn't that fast. So I think it depends on the country. For example, maybe they can test drive it out in New Zealand, because in New Zealand you cannot drive very fast. They have a speed limit of around 100 kilometer per hour only, and if you drive fast, you're gonna get a ticket lah.
Yes.
So for that country with like country like Singapore also with not many cars on the road, I think it's okay. But for a country like so many motorbikes like India, I think the blind people cannot handle that. I think the blind people will get stressed out because there's too many things at the side of them.
Agree. So it depends on the countries and environment also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true because yeah, okay. Yes, Adhar. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Pan. So I'm trying to remember what I've learned from my driving school. I think in the rule book it says that impaired individuals have to, they need a custom vehicle in order for them to actually learn in the driving school. So what I'm thinking is for those who are visually impaired, especially those who have that kind of disability when they were born, I think they have never felt driving experience. So with that kind of application, it actually widens their perspective on how difficult it is sometimes when driving, because you have to take into consideration about do I want to swerve right? Do I want to swerve left? I have to make sure that behind me there's no cars, there's no other people. So I guess it's an eye opener. Poor choice of words. So I guess it's a new experience for them. But to actually implement it, I have to agree with Haikal and also Ali. It's a long way to go, but it is a good starting point to actually allow visually impaired individuals to see what's on the road, to make them feel what's ahead of them. It's actually a good starting point and a very good innovative by using AI. So yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I do agree because as a normal people, your experience as a passenger and so your experience as a driver is completely different. All right, some people who just love to drive. Some people opt to drive. Kalau kena drive, will drive, for example. So it's a different experience. And yes, Azli Farid, okay, I wonder what is ethical issue arises if this happen. Yes, for example, if later somewhere near future, yes, they are allowed to drive on, they are legal for blind people to drive with using special car for the blind people to drive on the road, and then the regulation allows it. And what kind of ethical issue that will arise? For example, someone hit you from the back and then turn out to be it is actually a blind driver. Will they be accountable just like a normal driver or not? We don't know for sure because we don't have any regulation yet. Okay, if surrounding people and nearby environment think that hitting people is ethical, it is ethical. What do you mean, Amirul Hafiz? Can you elaborate on that? Yes, unlike law, ethics is subjective. Yes, agree. Mana dia? Amirul Hafiz, please comment something on that. like people is the one who made the moral and ethics. It's actually, yeah, of course, we're talking about what is right. Okay, one thing about moral and ethics and also norms, it depends on the culture you are in. For example, if you're in Malaysia, there's something that is acceptable in Malaysia, not in Singapore, for example, or something that is acceptable in India. For example, honking in India is considered polite. Or if you go to Indonesia, for example, experienced it once. Honking is actually a polite way saying that to the other driver, I am actually going to overtake you, for example. So they will actually honk first and then do it for you. But that kind of behavior is not acceptable in Malaysia. It's considered rude, to simply just horn kat orang lain macam tu, tak boleh lah in Malaysia. It is not acceptable. But it's okay in Indonesia, it's okay in Vietnam, it's okay in India, for example. And the norm or the regulation about traffic lights, for example. In Malaysia, yes, you cannot hit a red light. But if you go to certain countries in Africa, it's okay as long as you don't hit other people. So there is different over there. So of course, when talking about moral, ethics, and also norms, the bar is not the same. They have like different bar, different threshold at different countries. So that's why the debate about this is always like, it's still going on. Daripada dulu sampai sekarang masih lagi ada. Especially now, it become more intense. Why? Because you have another entity that contribute to it. So you have the technology. Sebelum ni setakat driver A dengan driver B. Now driver A, driver B. Driver B tu sebenarnya AV plus passenger kat belakang. So it becomes more complex. Complexities, yeah, okay. And then, yes, so we should take like some kind of response from local people, exactly how I think about ethics. Yes, definitely. That's why, in the process of designing, that's what you're doing this semester. You are using design thinking. The interaction with your users is so important. It's very, very important. Because when you're going to design something, let it be AI or anything that you want to innovate something, the feedbacks or the comments or anything, the requirement from the users is so important. All right. So like for example, Haika saying that I also wanted to point out the problem is in the information flow part and not the ability of the blind driver. Okay, I saw a few vids that shows the impressiveness of non-visual sensors for the blind people. Yes, there's one actually experiment in Canada. They are using special sensor that they put on your tongue that can actually tell the direction of the blind people, for example. Very impressive. Okay, in terms of conveying information to the blind people rather than projecting. So we are trying to augmenting the capability of visually impaired people. There's so many innovation for that. Okay, but then okay, ada juga argument yang lebih menarik adalah put aside the experience one. Okay, what is actually the goal? If you want to move someone from A to B, then it will be easy. Tak payah nak fikir macam mana nak drive kan, naik je lah Grab tu. Tak ada masalah. But still, if you doing that, then the AV yang macam Patrick Lin describe tadi, still will be inactive discussion. Alright, so already 11:58. Okay, the one that you missed yesterday is actually sekejap kita share dulu. I'm not saying that it is not related, but somehow we can relate to that. Okay, but this one is quite different. Okay, we're not talking about autonomous vehicle for human, but this is AV that can fight, that can actually outwin normal gamers. All right. So if you go for GT Sophie AI, okay, let me share my screen. So this is the shorter video, which is like promotional video. If you're really interested with this, how they do it, you should tune in. You should watch the AI for Good webinar that talk about how they are designing and making GT Sophie. Okay.
And to improve.
Right. So we're going to start from the beginning. So you can hear the sound kan? Boleh kan? I'm not so sure whether I'm sharing it right or not. Boleh dengar tak? Can someone?
Boleh.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Okay, watch this one first.
Artificial intelligence is not going to replace the human. We're going to create artificial intelligence that will unleash the power of human creativity and imagination.
The simplest way I would explain GT Sophie is an AI agent that learned to drive by itself at a very competitive level and is able to compete with the best drivers in the world.
We wanted to build a technology that enabled the AI agent to be able to understand, react, and then make at least the proper reactions in the real time in a dynamic and complex environment.
This is a collaboration between Sony AI, Polyphony Digital as a game development studio, and also Sony Interactive Entertainment.
There are many racing games where the physics is half done, but in Gran Turismo, that racing sensation that the players get, that's really at the core of the game. Kazunori-san, who's the CEO of PDI, he really lives racing, and he wants to capture the dynamics and the physics of that sport in the game.
このなんか車文化、車という存在をもう丸ごとビデオゲームの中にこう再現したいなと思ったんですね。
The realism of Gran Turismo comes from the detail that we put into the game. All the details about the engine, the tires, the suspension, the tracks, the car model.
Because of the realism of the game, it is actually very difficult to program agents. We started around a year and a half ago by bringing on new people and a new team, essentially, that would help us solve that specific challenge that we're engaging in with GT Sophie.
When you start projects like this, you always underestimate how hard they're going to be.
Oh, the early days of Sophie were frustrating.
So we had these bi-weekly tests with the guys from Sony AI, and they would bring a new version. The first version that I got to see of Sophie, she was fast, actually quite fast, but she couldn't run on a straight line. I can beat her 100 times over 100 times.
The Sophie agent is trained through a technique called reinforcement learning. Sophie begins her life as an agent, tabula rasa, a blank slate. She gets inputs from the game about, hey, here's how fast you're going, here's which way the wheels are pointed, here's the curvature of the track. And she gets some feedback as to whether what she's doing is good or bad.
We spent a lot of time trying to figure out what things we needed to change in order to get that superhuman performance.
The next time they came to us, she was extremely fast. And the next time, she was even faster and faster and faster. Okay, I can't beat this. And then we had to bring the big guns.
So we had one big race day in July, and we learned a lot from this.
By the time we came to July 2nd, it was super competitive. So the GT Sophie agents are one agent, but different color combinations, competing against the 4 top human drivers across 3 different tracks and car combinations. One of the drivers that participated in the race with us, Takuma Miyazono, he is the top driver out of the 14 million GT sports drivers in the world.
The first race was on a track called Dragon Trail Seaside, and there's a really sharp corner towards the end that Sophie takes in a way that's just really amazing. It drifts across the curbs as it prepares to enter this 180-degree turn in a way that when you watch it, you're like, how does it stay in control of the car with that maneuver? In a time trial setting, Sophie is better than the best humans by anywhere from a half second to a second and a half.
It did really well in the time trial scenarios, but it didn't do so well in the competitive racing.
So the results were that GT Sophie came in first place in 2 out of 3 races. Unfortunately, though, the total points that Sophie scored meant actually that the human drivers took the team score away.
I think we all underestimated how hard it would be to get the sportsmanship side of it right and learn to do that without being overly aggressive or overly timid in the face of competitors. That was a significant challenge to try to figure out what kinds of rewards to give it for these kind of in-game incidents.
We already had a great result on the first race day, but, you know, there we can always do better.
In order to make Sophie learn, she duplicate herself and for each of her play a different Gran Turismo in different situations. We really need a lot of computation power for training.
For the Sophie GT project, what we provided was essentially that infrastructure that's really needed to be able to train that super AI to get to that world-class ability to beat the best human players in the world.
You make an update to your model, you run it for like millions of simulations and see how they behave, and then you change a bit, and then you do this a lot of times.
In the end, it becomes an expert, a lot like humans become experts. Drives for like 10,000 hours, like a human has to practice the skill till they become proficient at it.
On race day 2, we wanted to win all out. The hope is that we also win the team championship, which we didn't in the first race day. Also that we win all 3 races in terms of like first place. The team put a lot of time into improving the agents, so we were nervous. The first 2 races go very well, and we are essentially dominating the race, taking first and second place, and that kind of gives some confidence going into the last race. And then there's this moment at the start of the 3rd race where there's a wipeout of one of our Sophie agents. But then what makes me very hopeful is that actually we're catching up and we're still in the game. And that agent actually goes to win the race. Sophie won all qualifying. It won first and second place in all 3 races. It recorded the best lap time in all 3 races and won the team score by double points versus the humans.
もちろんその勝ち負けもあるんですけれども、それ以上に重要なのはやっぱり、僕らが作っているこのグランツリスモソフィーっていう、AI は最終的に人を楽しませるエンターテインすることを目的に作っているので、今日集まってくれた、選手たちが楽しかったね今日のレースはっていうふうに言ってもらえるようなね。
AI は多分もうプレイヤーの相棒になるんじゃないかなというふうに思っていて。その相棒になった時になんか人間の感情を揺さぶってくれるようなすごいいい関係であってほしいなというふうに思います。
本当にすごいアグレッシブで、これからもっと一緒にレースしていきたいなっていうふうに思いましたね。
AI から学ぶものっていうのが非常に多かったなという、その速く走るために僕たちが考えもしないような走らせ方、確かに操作を見てみるとすごい理にかなっていて。
Why are we building this GT Sophie agent? The hope is really that we deploy these agents in the future to other games and thereby help those players also to explore the games in a much more richer and more exciting way than they were able to do before.
So this is not just a technical breakthrough project. It really is about bringing AI into the hands of the game developers who are creators, who are going to build the new experiences for the players and expanding their community and the engagement to the game itself.
その AI が人間に勝ちたいから、開発してるわけではなくて、AI を研究することは最終的に人間のことを理解することにつながるわけですよね。人間とは何かっていうことを考えることにつながる。僕らの好奇心というのは主にそこでしたね。
This is the very first challenge that Sony AI made. Most important thing is what you learn from the Grand Challenge and then take that into the real world.
Okay, dah habis. Alright. So I love the fact that when they stating the fact that you know what you can learn from AI, perhaps if we shift that shift that perception to, for example, driving. You have AV vehicle and you also driving, besides an AV, maybe something more that we can learn from AV, the way of good driving, for example. If that can happens to, that can happen to a car racing game. So I would imagine that, it can provide more information. And in that case, maybe the one that Patrick Lin described, perhaps it will be another case, right? Okay, so that is actually the end of it. So the video is actually to have you to make you think, you know, that is the course is all about. So AI in special topic in AI, we're not teaching you guys to do specific techniques or anything, but try to look at what are the other issues beyond the algorithm. What are the other issues that might be of concern beyond the algorithm and the design itself. All right. So the one that we have discussed today is all about, driving, perhaps. We're not touching so much on medical and also well-being on health, because that will be your scope for your test next week. All right. So how's the test will apa tu? We're going to conduct the test. The test will be online. Okay. So it will normally I'll give you 12 hours to answer. Tapi semalam saya cakap dengan group A berapa jam? 6 jam eh. Yes, Samuel, anything? 24 hours? Lain macam je lah. All right. Okay. We haven't decided yet. Perhaps it will be like 12 hours. I'm not going to give you 24 hours, maybe 12 hours. Nanti saya decide dulu dengan Dr. Izzy. Kalau Dr. Izzy baik, dia kata, oh bagilah 24 jam, I'll follow that. Kalau tak, 12 lah. Okay. 48 will be, Dr. Izzy selalu baik. Pujuklah dia dulu. Okay. Kalau ikut saya, 12 je. 6 je saya bagi. Alright. So what we're going to do is, I'll give you a few seed resources. It can be in terms of video, it can be a paper or website for you to refer. But this is what we call as seed resources. You are welcome to explore more if you have the time. Or what you can do is actually focus on the videos or the material that we given you and then answer the question. The question will be open-ended questions, essay questions, 2 questions only, but the issue will revolve around AI in medical care, health and well-being. Okay, boleh? Clear? Faham? Minggu depan, bukan minggu ni. Before you cuti seminggu. Alright. Okay. Azim cakap okay, baik. Okay, clear. Alhamdulillah. Alright. So for next week, that is for our session untuk hari Jumaat depan. But for our tutorial session, dia akan berlangsung seperti biasa, offline. So we're going to do brainstorming minggu depan. Ada yang belum habis, belum start lagi presentation dan sebagainya, but we'll do it that. Kita akan sambung nantilah. So tutorial seperti biasa dalam kelas, we'll do discussion and everything. But for our lecture session next week, there will be no online session like this. What you have to do is you have to complete the test. Okay, the overall I think it's 10% of overall grade. Okay, only 2 questions, and each questions is no more than 2 to 300 words. So tak adalah panjang sangat isinya. But you have to understand the problem. Only then you can give us a good answer lah. Okay, so kalau tak ada apa-apa soalan, cukup dengan 3 video hari ini. So 3 things that you can start thinking, whenever you do your FYP, think about the possible issues that may arise from it, the impact dan sebagainya. Okay, I know perhaps some of you cannot see the link, cannot see the connection just now. I mean, connection tu mungkin tak clear lagi, but I believe as we go along and then as you develop your FYP and so many things, you can see that the issues is actually developing, or it's actually orang kata bertambah lah the discussion or the level of kata keperluan tu you akan nampak kemudian. Alright, so insyaAllah later I'll have a few other videos that talking about this dynamic relation between AI, regulation, and also ethics. Very clear one. And then, but for this, for next week, focus on the test lah. All right. So if with that, thank you so much. Stay safe, everyone. Assalamualaikum.
Salam. Thank you, madam.
Waalaikumsalam juga, Madam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Madam.
Okay.
Madam.